here, Director of Communications. He's going to talk about the church and using social media for evangelization and some of the do's and don'ts about that. And we're happy to hear there, and glad that this is available to people on YouTube to see. Terry.
Good morning. It's okay. I'm going to just take off my mask while I talk so that you can at least see my mouth moving and see me smiling at you. Thank you for inviting me here today. As David said, I'm Mary DeTurris-Paust. Most people, if they know me here from the parish, it's as Director of Communications for the Diocese of Albany. I've been in that position for 5 years, but before I started as director, I actually was brought to the diocese as social media coordinator because the diocese was not doing any social media at that point. And so I met with Bishop Scharfenberger, and we talked about the fact that the diocese really needed to be present on social media, and he was all about that. In fact, he had a Twitter account long before he got to the Diocese of Albany. So I originally came on specifically to bring the diocese social media to help with that. But even before that, back as early as 2012, I had been at the U.S. Bishops conference to be on a panel to talk about the need for all dioceses, all parishes, to use social media as an evangelization tool. And at that time, I told the bishops that Facebook was the new parish hall. And it really had become that. In the old days, people identified themselves by their parish. You might ask them what neighborhood they were from, where they lived, and they would tell you by their parish, especially if they lived in an urban area. I'm from downstate New York. New York City, people definitely identified themselves by their parish rather than their streets. So we moved, as our society changed, and that began to change, and the parish was no longer the hub of society. Everything changed along with it, and it was no longer the place where people gathered for their social events, where their families spent their free time. And so, unfortunately now, we are so much more of an isolated society, and we are involved in so many things, that social media has become that virtual place of connection, that virtual place of community. And if we are not there, then we're missing a whole big segment of our population. Fast forward to now, 2020, when the pandemic has hit, and Facebook is no longer just the parish hall. Facebook is in many cases the church. It is where the people are seeing the mass play out because they cannot be physically present. So social media, it's funny, and for so long I've been beating the drum about social media, and now I get calls from people who never wanted to do social media, and they're saying, wow, we can't believe what we can do by live streaming our mass, by putting out a short 1-minute message to our people, by just being present there, putting photos up there, trying to make people feel like they're connected, even when they're not. So the silver lining, I think, of pandemic in this sense is that I think it has made people aware of just how powerful social media can be when it's used for good. And unfortunately, a lot of the times, it's not used for good, especially these days. So, where are you? These are the big ones, YouTube, Twitter, Snapchat, for especially among the young folks. So where are you? Are you on there personally? Are you working for an organization that you're helping them promote? So many of you may be working for committees or ministries or your parish. So you can sort of listen to this with both ears, because really you can't be doing your ministry social media if you're not also present personally. It almost requires you to be present so you know what's happening. These are the big numbers. If you look at these numbers, it's pretty unbelievable. 2.5 billion on Facebook, 1.9 billion on YouTube, 1 billion on Instagram, 500 million on TikTok, 330 million on Twitter, 265 million on Pinterest. I can tell you the last time I gave this talk was probably 2017, and TikTok has jumped over Twitter. I'm not going to talk a lot about TikTok today because really it's kind of the social media of the 15-year-old. I have a 15-year-old. I can tell you that it is.
Just back off the mic a little bit.
Back off the mic.
That's
I
right.
got a big mouth. So TikTok and Snapchat are very much the very young people's social media, and they really use it for very fast-moving kind of things. I'll be honest, we have not found a use for that yet in terms of diocesan social media. I've tried, I've followed a few sisters who have Snapchats. So far, that's not working for us, but I will focus on what I think are the big three. for people who want to do social media for their parish or for their organization or even personally. Because remember, you don't have to be in an official role to be an evangelist. We're all evangelists. So even on your personal page, even when it's just you out there, you are an evangelist. So just like we think about talking to people about our faith, inviting people to our communities, we do the same thing through our social media accounts. So you don't have to be working for an organization to make this something that will be an opportunity to evangelize. So the big ones I would focus on are Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. And those all have very different audiences and very different purposes. So Facebook is going to be your real community. That's probably going to be where you reach the most of your parishioners that are currently coming to Mass, because Facebook has an older demographic. When I post either for the diocese or for myself, and I look at analytics, it tells me most of my people are in the 55 to 70-year-old category. Most of them are women. So it's really kind of mirroring probably a lot of what's happening even in our physical churches. So Facebook is not the social media of the young. I can tell you that from experience. I have a almost 24-year-old, a 20-year-old, and a 15-year-old. None of them use Facebook. It's old people social media, but it's perfect for us. So, because we can reach a lot of people on Facebook, and it's where there can be conversations, videos, easy things that you can share, and an opportunity to sort of be a positive force out there on social media. Instagram is totally visual, so you don't have to write much. You put up a pretty picture, a few words, hashtag, and that's it. You're going to find a slightly younger demographic there. You're going to find younger adults are on Instagram. And when you move to Instagram stories, which are sort of the Instagram and Facebook versions of Snapchat, those are quick-moving posts that last for only 24 hours. So that's what that mirrors. It mirrors the Snapchat world. So you will find the very young people on those stories because they'll be on Instagram in a story fashion. So again, I can see that in my own day-to-day life, that my teenager is actually on Instagram but in the story format. So that's a place I know that she can be reached. Twitter is totally different in that it's very short little blips, and it's mostly going to be people who are kind of watching for breaking news. To be honestly, this weekend with the news breaking in our country, that's where I've spent the majority of my time. I've been watching headlines, watching things go by. That's really what Twitter's going to be. We use it for everything, but to share links, to try to push people to our pages. But the audience there is going to be much more looking for these quick hits of news. I can give you a real-time example. So the diocese had a pre-planned St. Francis of Assisi post today. That was scheduled to go out on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. But the Pope released his encyclical today. We couldn't really plan for that until it was out, until we could see it, Fratelli Tutti, and so we waited, we saw it. I texted the bishop this morning and got his statement that he would want it to say about the Pope's new encyclical. I posted it to his page on Facebook, I posted that to the diocesan page, and then I posted it to Twitter in 2 pieces. So that was sort of what I was doing before I got here this morning, because that was a breaking story that then had to happen on Twitter. So those are the different ways all of those platforms work. This is the Pope on Instagram. You probably can't see it from there, but he has like 7.1 million followers. His account is very active. Here he is. That was Instagram. This is Twitter. He has 18.7 million followers on Twitter. When he first joined Twitter, he was the most influential person on Twitter at the time. So when you are on social media, if you're on Twitter, if you're on Instagram, these are good places to go to share things. So you don't have to always write original things. This morning, one of the first things I did was go to the Pope's account, see what the Pope had tweeted out or what the Vatican had tweeted out, and retweet that. That way I'm getting a message out there, but I don't have to write it, I don't have to look at it, figure it all out. I just know it's coming from a reliable source. And in today's world, we have to always be watching for reliable sources. The Diocese of Albany. We are pretty much everywhere, and when I leave here today, I will make sure I leave some prayer cards that have all of our social media addresses on them, and I'll also leave a little bookmark that has my personal, professional page in case you want to find out more about my pages, because I'm an author, and so I tweet a lot about that and post a lot about that. So we have, the Diocese of Albany has a Facebook page, the bishop has a Facebook page. Then within the Diocese of Albany, there's the Evangelist, there's Respect Life, there's Vocations, there's Marriage and Family Life, that all have their own individual pages sort of branching out. And I'm an administrator on all of them. So, so that there's a central person that sort of connects all the threads, even though I don't actually post on those pages. I'm sort of somebody who's just present everywhere there. And then, so those pages, and then we'll set up individual pages, maybe if we have a special event, like a really big special event, say the Eucharistic Congress. So these are things you can be thinking about if you're working in your parish, that you could have a special event page or something like that where you're only posting about that big event and trying to drum up interest on that. We have our Albany Diocese Instagram, which is also just it's a pretty page, as you can see. It's all really nice visuals. Sometimes it'll be really a traditional, like saint post. This one we're sharing that we have jobs posted at the diocese. I happen to be in that one over there, giving a talk to Pyramid Life Center. Just so happened that I'm up there. And we are on Twitter, as is Bishop Ed. So you can find us in all these places, and like I said, I'll leave prayer cards that on the back have all of those different locations if you're interested. So these are some of the things people worry about when it comes to getting on social media. That it'll take a lot of time, that they'll have to respond to all these comments, and we hear all the terrible stuff about, you know, the comment box and how negative it gets, that it'll be a privacy issue, that it won't reach enough people, or that it's really not a dignified way to share the faith. So it doesn't have to take a lot of time. It's really easy to just share something positive, and my feeling is we need to be the force for good out there in social media. So I don't know if anybody's seen The Social Dilemma, which is a film about social media, talking to the experts, the people who invented it, and how artificial intelligence gets in there and starts to predict what you want and how addictive it is, and how dangerous it can be when it's not used the right way. It's worth a watch, even though it'll probably scare you, because as someone who loves social media, it scared me. But there's no getting around social media anymore. It's here. It's how people communicate. It's not going to go away. So the reality is then, how do we live within it? How do we live within that world and be a positive presence out on social media to counter all of the negativity that's there? And I'll tell you right now, one of the easiest ways to counter the negativity in your own feed is just to stop following the people who are negative, which is something I have learned to do. So if people are very nasty in their comments, not on my pages, but just in their general stuff, posting a lot of controversial stuff, angry stuff, I just unfollow them, because it's just not worth it to have that stuff in your feed. So you can control what you do on social media. You can say, I don't want to see that, I'm going to block that, I'm going to stop following it. And you can be the one who shares the good stuff. So, for example, I have a page, that's my author page, and it's mostly inspirational quotes, things about the saints of the day, things about prayer, things about meditation. So there's a lot of opportunity for sharing positive things. And I gave a retreat recently at Pyramid Life Center, and I had a few people come to that retreat who'd never been to Pyramid before, a couple who were not Catholic, but they followed my author page, they saw the positive stuff going by about Pyramid, beautiful photos of Pyramid, and they were like, I think I'll try this. So that was an evangelization moment, because then I had somebody there at this retreat who wasn't Catholic, who didn't know a lot about the Catholic Church, sort of experiencing the church in a different way and getting a totally different perspective from what she reads maybe in her social media feed. So we don't realize that it may be only one person, but we can affect some really positive things out there. There's Pyramid. They post just an example of how easy it is to be on social media. Brian Evers, the director of Pyramid, literally posts a beautiful photo every single day. And I can tell you that I wait every day to see what that photo looks like. Oh, the leaves are changing. Oh, there's fog this morning. It's cold today. So, and he has this lovely following of people who love Pyramid, who then will leave him comments, share it, and this is how they build up Pyramid, because then, like I said, people see that picture and say, where's that? I want to go there. So it's a very subtle and very pleasant, positive way to share things, and you don't have to write a lot, you just have to share a nice picture. It's another one, it's Ignatian spirituality. They should put up a pretty picture and say, where did you find God this weekend? People can leave comments. They don't have to read the comment, but it just gets people thinking, and then they like what you posted, and they say, I think I'm going to follow this and come back here. There are lots of free tools, and if people who watch this would like more information about the free tools I mentioned, you're free to email me at communications@rcda.org, and I can help you with that. So I will tell you two of the tools we use in the communications office is canva.com, which is free, and Adobe Spark. And then either if you don't have your own pictures, one of the things you need to be careful of are using pictures of that belong to other people and are not copyright free. So you don't want to do that. So you'll get flagged for it, or it's just not the right thing to do. So if you don't have your own images, there's a website called unsplash.com. It's free. I use it myself. You go on there. All you have to do, if you're willing to put in your email, and then you have access to really beautiful photos. That one happens to be my photo. But I went into canva.com and I literally in 5 minutes picked a template that had that kind of writing and had space for a photo. I dragged my photo from my folder onto that template, typed in the words I wanted, and it was done. And so it's not like you have to have some sort of special skills to design those kinds of pretty things. Again, you don't have to do that on a personal page, but if you're working for a parish or a ministry and you want to create something a little more, like I put my website at the bottom so that hopefully if somebody shares it, my website is up there, then it gives them an opportunity to say, where did this come from? I think I'll follow this or go visit this website, and that's how you get more visitors. The other thing you can do is create a private group. So if you're not comfortable with a lot of people being out there publicly, you have people who are like, I'm not so crazy about everybody seeing me, so you could create a group. This happens to be the Respect Life group. I picked it because I knew it existed. It was 260 members, so that's a pretty big group for a closed group. But that's where our Respect Life person is able to deal directly with all of the other Respect Life ministers in the entire diocese, and everything they say can only be seen by them. Nobody else can see it. So I created, after I gave my Still Point retreat at Pyramid, our group wanted a place where they could talk to each other privately because they had gotten to know each other on the retreat. So I created a Still Point retreat group that is only open to the people who actually attended the retreat. So I've had a few people request membership, and I've just let those go because I want people to know that everyone they're talking to has already heard their story and is aware of who they are. And so again, everybody can post there. So sometimes a different person, it's not just me, someone else will post a prayer that they want to share, a group that they think someone might want to would be interested in. So there's lots of opportunities there to create a group, say within a parish, that you don't want everybody to be public, especially if it might be something for young people or faith formation or something like that, and you want to keep it kind of closed.
Just clarification, are those Facebook, Instagram?
That's a Facebook private group. So Facebook is where you can do the private groups. Thank you for asking that. So yeah, this is a Facebook thing that you can do here. It's not as easy on Instagram, but this is more where you would have that conversation going on, because Facebook is more where people can get into a conversation in the comment box, or want to post things to a wall. And so the wall is where you write. So, you know, say my author page, people can't post to my wall. I don't allow it because I don't want just things that I can't control coming up there. But on the retreat page, because I know everybody in that group, they can all post to the wall. So it kind of and you can make all those different settings. And that's the thing. If you're a little leery of, say, Facebook in particular, because that's the one where you can control a lot of your settings, that's something you can, talk to somebody. Again, you could ask our office, how do I create these parameters so that people can't write on my wall, they can't tag me in a photo, they can't put something up without my knowledge. Nobody can put a picture up of me unless I accept that tag first or something like that. So there are protections, but sometimes you have to kind of dig into the settings, the privacy settings. So these, you don't have to read all this. I'll go through it, but I want to put it there so it was in it's in the PowerPoint. And again, I can give these to you. I can make a sheet of them and send them to you if people would be interested. Don't be afraid of social media. Take the plunge, and it's here to stay, and it really is the way to be modern day evangelists. We can see it with the Pope. Pope Francis has embraced it. He's out there. We're here seeing tweets on Twitter. We're seeing photos on Instagram. Bishop Ed has really long been a proponent of social media. Harder for him to do now that he's in two places at once. But he's still out there, and the diocese is still making sure that our message is out there on all different fronts. The U.S. bishops are out there. These are the things you can look for. If you're thinking, I don't know what to share, it might be something I'll think about doing is putting up a list of resources that are good social media shareable sites, so that you know you're dealing with something that's trustworthy. So you've got the Vatican, you've got Pope Francis, you've got Catholic News Service, which is the United States Church's version of the AP, for Catholics. Something like Grotto Network, which is a beautiful, more visual kind of site. They post really nice things. Lots of different dioceses have things. Father James Martin. There's lots of great resources out there that you can just find them, follow them, and then just hit a share button to your page, and you're now, Pyramid Life Center, all these things even locally that you can find that would be worth sharing. But your parish itself has done some really fun, eye-catching things. I saw the apple picking promo on Facebook recently and tried to get my son to go to it because it caught my eye, it was bright red, it looked great, and I thought, this is really nice. And I think I saw another one go by recently that was very colorful, and I thought they're already doing a really good job with this on Facebook. So, and I see that you've got a parish app, that's your own parish app, which is a great thing. So I'm going to check that out because I was not aware of it, so I'm going to go look into that when I leave here. Use lots of images, don't use a lot of dense copy. People don't want to read anymore, which is sad, but they don't. So they want to read short pieces, short little blips of information. So if you can do more visual stuff, shorter messaging, that works better. Be a constant presence on social media, so show up regularly. Don't post once and then not show up again for 2 months because people will say, well, that page is not really active. But on the other hand, don't post 20 things in a day because people will then be like, I'm unfollowing that because I can't deal with seeing so much from this one person. Even this morning, I knew that we had one post go up earlier. I was a little worried about putting the next one up within an hour and a half, but then I knew it was important, so I went ahead and did it. And they were connected to each other. So just be mindful of that because there are people out there or organizations that will share so much that you then just turn them off because it becomes like white noise and it's clogging your feed. Build a large network of friends. Try to, if you're doing this for your parish, try to find ways to reach out to people. If people in the Faith Formation program know that Facebook or Instagram or Twitter will be a place where they can find information, or your parish app, then they sign up for it, and now you have them because they signed up to make sure that Faith Formation classes will be happening, but in the meantime, they're hearing about the apple picking, they're hearing about the food pantry, they're hearing about whatever else you post. So it's sort of a way to bring them in, and then from there, start to give them more information. But don't friend anyone under 18. So that's like a really important thing from the safe environment perspective. I'm imagining it's probably pretty hard for youth ministers, things like that. But if you have a group that people can belong to, that's fine, but not that personal one-on-one friendship with people under 18 if you're in a position of authority in your parish or your organization. Find another big one is find another person who will be on that page with you, whether it's Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube. Don't let one person have all the access and the password and nobody else knows how to do it. So I can tell you from experience in the diocese, we have had parishes have a person leave, and that person was the only one who ran the Facebook page and the only one with the administrative privileges, and they took the page with them when they went. So if you end on, say, something that's not quite so amicable, you could end up losing your page, and you have to rebuild it. And now they have the name, they have everything. So even those things are rare, it's really good to have a second person. It's really essential to have a second person. So, and then it's also a second set of eyes to catch things. So, like I said, I'm administrator, on the diocesan page, the bishop's page, Respect Life page, Vocations, Merit, I'm on all of those pages. So I see all the notifications, but I'm also available if somebody says, there's a problem with this page, can you go check and see? I saw something go by, can you go see it? I can go in, I can delete something, I can correct the typo, I can do whatever is necessary. So, especially if you're running a parish page or a ministry page, make sure you have more than one person on there to check and balance, and to be your backup if you're not around. moderate your comment box, but you don't have to worry about it getting overwhelming. You don't have to respond to every comment. Oftentimes on the diocesan page, it'll just be people saying amen, or we're praying for you, or thank you, Bishop, or thank you to the diocese, or sometimes not thank you. They're going to be mad. But usually they almost talk to each other in the comment box, so it's sort of like someone may say something, someone else responds. They're having their own conversation. I'll let that play out unless it gets out of hand. And it doesn't often get out of hand, but every once in a while it will. And you cannot be afraid to just say, be civil, be kind, or you are removed from the page. And it hasn't happened more than a couple of times, but there have been those times when people just get out of bounds, start with the name calling and the nastiness, and then they just get their comments deleted, and that's that. So don't be afraid if somebody's doing something that's not appropriate, that's rude, to just tell them, no, we're going to shut this down. Have a sense of humor, radiate joy, especially these days in our world. Don't be too strident on anything. Don't post political things that are going to cause you a problem on your, through a parish feed or a ministry feed. Steer clear of any of that stuff, because that's just going to cause you more trouble than it's worth and be a problem, especially if you're in a parish. Just try to keep it upbeat and positive, trying again to bring that sense of joy into the social media platform. And a lot of times you can be posting similar or even the same things in different places. So we might post something on Instagram, post the same thing or a version of it on Facebook, and then we use the story to sort of share other things. So for example, we might see a parish advertising something they're going to do, so we share that to the diocesan story, and we add a little question that says, is your parish doing this? And that way people will then share that, and that's how we continue to spread each other's messages. So instead of looking at each other as like competition, looking at each other as a big community that can promote each other's good works, and in the process build up the church locally. And there's the Pope, one of his early selfies. So there's a lot of drawbacks to social media, but the benefits and the ability to use it to build our parish community, to bring new people into the church, is really critical. So we have to be there, whether we like it or not. And trust me, there's days where I think, I would love to get off social media, just step away. And I did, years ago, back in 2014, I deleted my Facebook account. I wanted to just get off. And so I deleted the account, which was very difficult to do. At that point, I wasn't working for the diocese. But I was an author, and so my husband had to administer my own page for me, and I'd have to tell him, can you post this? Can you post this? Because I wasn't on there. And I quickly realized that there were friends I had made on Facebook. There were people with whom I only knew how to connect via Facebook Messenger. I had no phone number for them, no email for them, but we were in constant connection on Facebook. And so I probably stayed off for about 5 months and then decided I would come back in, but I would do it on a very limited basis, be much more selective about not taking every single person who wanted to be my friend, not feeling bad if I need to unfollow someone, not feeling like I had to be sort of everything to everyone on my personal page. And that made a difference. But it can suck you in and be a huge time waster if you don't sort of put some parameters on yourself. And that's something I think that is what makes people nervous about social media. They feel like it's going to kind of become this overwhelming thing. So if you haven't used it and you want to try it, I always recommend just doing one thing, just one of the social medias. Don't feel like I've got to get on all these platforms and I've got to be doing everything. You don't. You can pick one. Pick Instagram or Facebook as a starting point, and then see how it goes from there. And if you're working, again, trying to be in a church community, then probably Facebook, just because it's an easier place to kind of build up that community feeling. But Instagram is quickly becoming equal, I think, to that power of Facebook, just because people like that visual experience as opposed to a lot of reading. And Facebook also has a lot of algorithms that prevent you from sometimes seeing what people post. So I know when I post my author things, I may have 2,000 followers, but a very small handful of those people are going to see it based on what Facebook decides they're going to see. So it's very hard to know who's going to see what out in that field. And eventually, again, if there are people working in their parish or ministries that want more information on say how to sponsor an ad, boost a post. Those are things you can do on Facebook and Instagram to try to get your post. You'll see it go by, it'll say sponsored, and sometimes you'll see somebody's post coming by over and over again. That's because they've paid to increase their visibility. And it can be a cheap way to advertise something. You can pick what regions you want it to be in, you can pick the population you want to reach, and for a very small amount of money you can try to increase your presence on Facebook and Instagram. The downside is the people with a lot of money then can fill up your feed with all those sponsored posts. So, but that's sort of how that all works. I want to see if there's anything else that, anything anyone has any questions that they want to ask.
Could you talk about any kind of unusual or innovative things you've seen other parishes do with these social media apps?
Well, we've seen a real growth. The question was, have I seen anything unusual or innovative in other parishes? I will tell you, since the pandemic started, is when we really started seeing innovative stuff. So, of course, the live stream masses have been huge. The people love the live stream masses, and in fact, we may have just done it too well. People are like, I'm going to watch live stream mass, because they really like the live stream mass with their cup of coffee. So in some ways, we've actually done that job almost too well, and not me, I mean all of you out in the parishes. We're seeing some places that will do Liturgy of the Hours, like a little video of Liturgy of the Hours on Facebook. Sometimes you'll see fun things. Father Scott Manvere down in Ravenna will do really fun. Sometimes he'll do funny stuff. Like he did one that was singing that I just loved. It was like hysterical. But he'll also do like lead people in silent meditation. He'll talk about I think he has one up now. Like he's self-quarantining, and that's what he's talking about. So we had another couple of priests do short videos on Lectio Divina. So they're actually trying to use, video is very powerful. The hard part of video is that it's harder to do at a high quality if you don't have the equipment. Even though iPhones will work really well, it can be hard if you've never shot video. But most parishes, since they're doing live streams and things like that, are now in a position where they can do basic video. So I think I'm seeing like some takeovers. St. Pius, we're seeing like teenagers or young people, young adults doing takeovers of the Instagram for a day. They're kind of like talking back and forth. Again, you need to make sure, if you've got a young person you trust, you've got somebody else on the feed with them, so that if anything goes wrong, there's an adult there who's monitoring that from the parish. But that's been a really cool thing. And sometimes I'll just see it going by, like, so-and-so is going to be doing the Instagram takeover. So we're seeing some of that. I think probably the most innovative stuff is happening in video, because that's sort of the thing that engages people. And I always tell people, short is better. So if I get a video from somebody that's like 6 or 7 minutes long, that's too long. So like if we're doing like a promo of some sort, if you're doing like Lectio or something like that, that's different, and that's Facebook Live. So that's also key. That Facebook Live, Instagram Live. People like that. They'll get a notification if they follow your parish that you've gone live, so that they can join it right away. So we actually see more success, as a diocese, we see more success with Facebook Live than we do necessarily with YouTube. So, because people aren't necessarily on YouTube watching for things, whereas they may be on Facebook just scrolling through their feed, and now it pops up, the Diocese of Albany has gone live, and they click on it and join a Mass at the Cathedral. So we do see that is a positive way to do things over, but the YouTube is great too, but again, YouTube requires a certain amount of quality to get it to be where you need it to be. So Facebook and Instagram Live, I feel, is almost a little more forgiving. People understand you're shooting live, you're often shooting off of a phone. They accept that maybe it's not going to be a Hollywood production or something like that. So those have been really positive things. Little almost surveys, like Instagram stories, Facebook stories will let you put something out there and be like, what are you doing fish fry tonight during Lent? And again, it can be something fun. So we might put up a picture of a fish fry and post a photo like, fish fry or pizza on Friday in Lent, and let people answer the question, and then people look to see. So you can do fun things, and it's actually good to do fun things because it'll surprise people and sort of draw in a different group, and you might get some young people if you're doing some fun stuff like that. We were talking before we started taping about trying to bring in young people. It's a real challenge because they don't necessarily follow the pages that we are out there posting on. So you kind of have to be trying to be where they are, and you really almost need to tap into your young people to find that out. So, places that have a strong young adult ministry, they are at an advantage because you can be tapping into your own young adult community and trying to ask them where you should be present. And that's what I think we need to do. We need to talk to younger people and get their feedback. And we need to remember that, it's about building community. They want to belong to something. They may struggle with some of our teachings. They may have issues with some of the things the church says. So if we can bring them into community, if we can make them feel like they're invested in something, give them something that they want to belong to first, before we hit them with other things, we might have a chance of bringing them in, because they do want that sense of belonging. There is definitely a need for a sense of belonging, especially as I think they come out of college, they leave that college community, and now they go back to church, and often in many parishes don't find anything that is there for them. There's nothing for them until they get married or have a child that needs to be baptized. And that's a real loss, because those are I can look at my son who's in that category right now and look at him and wonder what he sees for himself. And he's a devoted Catholic. What does he see in the parish that's there for him? And there's not a lot. So I think it's imperative that we start focusing in on our young adults, because they're going to be the future of our church. And the diocese is doing some of these things lately. The Pints with Priests has been a popular a virtual event for young adults that the diocese has been doing during the pandemic. So they'll have it started with Bishop. A bunch of people who register in advance, they give them the Zoom link. They sign on to Zoom. People have their beer or their glass of wine or a cup of tea, and they sit and they talk about something. So they've done a series of those. I believe we've had so far 1 or 2 Sips with Sisters, where Sister Betsy came and did something and talked to people. So that's kind of been an innovative thing, which tried to take the Advent program that they did last year, which is where they went out and did sort of like these young adult gatherings in various pubs and coffee houses to bring people together in reality. And then when pandemic came, none of that could happen, and so they made it all virtual. But it has been very popular, and they've been getting a pretty good number of young adults. So there are ways to try to do that, and I think the key is to actually ask the young people what they need, because I think if you were to ask a lot of young people, they want service. I think they want to do things that are for the environment, for the community, for those who are vulnerable. That's what they want to do. They want to collect food, work in a pantry, all that sort of stuff. And if we can bring them in that way and then sort of weave them into the community, we have a better chance of doing that. So I think some of that is then trying to find the organizations that they're looking into. How can we sort of tap into their interests, find ways to reach them? Our faith formation programs are going to be critical there, because when we still have them in faith formation, we not only have them, we have their families. And so that's sort of our last chance in some of these instances to grab people before we don't see them again for a really long time. I wrote an article, at one point I had taught my middle child, my daughter's confirmation class, and it was a 2-year program at St. Thomas, and I had written a blog post for another organization, and it was basically about how I look at my class, and I think I see probably 75% future ex-Catholics. So that's how I viewed it. I saw my class, and I thought, I think we'll be lucky if there's 1/4 of these kids who stay Catholic or stay in the church after they receive their confirmation, which is pretty devastating. So how do we try to get them and get their families while they're still connected to us before we lose the connection and can't get it back? And I think that's where social media can help us. That's where things like your app that you have here at St. Vincent's or other parishes are using apps, is a way to try to get those people to follow you, to be connected, and hopefully hold on to that connection after the faith formation program is over. So now we're almost moving into a whole different topic, so I'll probably wrap it up. But I'm happy to come back and talk about that topic too. I used to do a talk called Lost Generation, How to Reach Disconnected Adults, because there's so many disconnected adults. There's so many people who are my age. I grew up in what I call the era of the collage. Didn't get a lot of grounding, but I got the grounding from my family. That's where my faith formation came from, my family. So the question becomes, if a family does not have the ability to give that grounding, we now move into a second generation. that's even more lost than the one before it. So how do we sort of nip that in the bud and try to get those people while they're still in faith formation, latch onto them? Your parish is very active. You're doing so many things that I'm going to guess that you have less of a problem with that than others, but how do you try to hold on to some of those young people that are aging out of your faith formation program and taking their families with them? And I think there is an ability for social media to help us today. So thank you very much for having me. I can share this video, and if anybody wants to see it, I can post it. And I will make some resources available, send them, and if anybody wants them, if you want to reach me, you can call the communications office at the diocese at the pastoral center, or email communications@rcda.org. And I will leave prayer cards here. They'll be here in your parish center for anybody who wants to take those addresses, but you can also find them on our diocesan website, rcda.org. And we're happy to answer any questions in our communications office for people from the parish who would like to use social media for their ministries. Any other parishes that are seeing this, who need some assistance, give us a call and we will help you get started. And thank you for having me here today.